This week on Carlie's Couch, we're talking about opinions, but other people's opinions. Do you let them affect what you do and say?
Happy Monday. I'm about to say, look, that's excellent. Happy Monday, everybody. How you doing? How you feeling? Lex, how you doing this morning?
I'm okay. I'm like annoyed with everybody today, but we gonna be all right.
For real. I had one of them days last week. I was like, I just need to be by myself.
Yeah, I already was like, yeah, guys, I ain't gonna be there today for my plans. I was like, I need to have a sofa day, so I'm gonna chill, get myself together, relax. Yeah, so everything's cool, but I'm just gonna be chilling today.
Yo, that coffee cup big flexing on me right now. I like that Capsule CEO.
Yeah, with the
Ooh.
that's that New Orleans. I forgot what the name of the font is for real, but you know when they have the diamond font like on front of all the Silk the Shocker, Juvenile, all those. That's what
that's
it is.
First, I was about to say that's absolutely what I thought of. But yeah, so thank you to everybody who's been listening and commenting and sending messages. Big shout out to Kayla Monae on YouTube. She been commenting and listening and running through old episodes. And a couple of hers, she's like, man, y'all are so underrated. You know, you can go leave us another review if you haven't. And if you haven't ever left us one, please go hit us up 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to podcasts. But she was listening to episode 181, which was the dark side of being too positive. And she left us a comment and said, have you guys ever done an episode on how to not care about others' opinions and what they think? So that's what we're talking about today.
How to not care about other people's opinions. Should we not care about other people's opinions? That's probably the first question. Huh?
I think that to a degree it's important. I think that, like, especially with people you love, like you want to be on one accord and you want to make people proud, and that's good. I think that it can become problematic whenever you let it dictate how you live your life. Like you always hear those stories of people who like didn't want to be a doctor but became one to make their parents proud, and they really want to be an artist but now they're dying and they live their whole life for somebody else. So I think that there's like a big line there.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe a question I would ask you is, whose opinions matter to you?
My own is the most important, but then outside of me, I would say like partner or somebody like that in my life, like my best friends, I care about them, and my friends, and that's kind of it. But even those are like varying degrees, like going down like cake tiers of how much they matter to me. What about you?
For me, whose opinions matter to me, or who I take into some consideration, I would say is my parents, brother, partner, clients, people I work with, team members. I think that's about most of it for me. When I think about other people's opinions, they matter. Not so the way this question was framed, it almost seemed as if it's already like the opinion is against how you already feel or what you want. And for me, I also can think about it, and I remember to think about it as in, I work with people, and I want their opinion. I appreciate their opinion. So there's a lot of people where, yes, I want their opinion because I don't want everything to be like just what I'm thinking is right or could be the way to do something. So I appreciate those opinions from other people in certain aspects like that, right? So it's like, it's not like I don't want to care about your opinion, or I shouldn't care about your opinion for everybody's opinion. But in some cases, in my examples, for example, is like with your parents' opinion, perhaps, or a partner's opinion, that may be more of when you're thinking about validation or approval and hoping that they are okay with something you do or say or whatever. And I think that's a little bit different. And it does matter to me, but also not enough for me to be worried about it exactly. So yeah, I think that let's remember that, there's all different types of opinions. It doesn't mean that necessarily like you shouldn't care what anybody thinks, or that everybody's thoughts or opinions are going to be like some negative towards you.
Yeah, I think that that's a huge thing. And it's so funny because I do actually like value people's opinions. And when you were saying that, I was like, oh man, I didn't even think about those people at all. I was automatically thinking about like things against it. But yeah,
You think about the haters first.
yeah,
And I think that's a huge mind shift that a lot of people need to make is like let's not just think about people hating on you all the time. But I think we also have a tendency to, that's what we think of first. Like, how do we not let people's opinions affect us? And you're just thinking about that way. But there's so many opinions that are good things or that you're looking for also. Maybe unwanted opinions. So like unwanted opinions, like how do you deal with that might be like a different kind of piece of all of this.
yeah, absolutely. I was. Go ahead. No,
I just keep talking.
Keep talking. Go ahead.
Because like how also like let's talk about this. Like how do you know what somebody else's opinion is and what they think?
And so you don't unless they tell you or unless they say something. I think a lot of times like we get in our own heads about other people's opinions or what we think they think or what we think they're feeling. And so you don't really know unless you've actually had that conversation. And so that was like one of my big things. And to stop, like how to stop caring, like really, like unless you have that conversation, like don't stop assuming that you know how other people feel about things.
Yeah, and almost the way that the question is phrased, it almost kind of makes me think, how do you not care about others' opinions and what they think? It may be that it might be even more real that what you're saying is like, how do I not care about validation from particular people? Because who knows? I mean, and people may really be expressing opinions to you and you caring about that and trying to take that all in. But to what Carlie just said, a lot of times, and even when I think about with mine, like going back to parents, a lot of that is, oh, you think this is what you need to do, or I know they wouldn't approve of this, so I should do this. But like some people are very outright and they will tell you their opinion on you for sure. But a lot of times it might be internalized, or that might be you. The question might be like, why am I seeking that validation, or why am I trying to like fit into something that I think somebody else wants? And that's also kind of different.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the important things is like figuring out why it's bothering you or why you care. Like, and that could be for whatever reason. Like, obviously, if it's a partner, like, yeah, you want them to be proud of you and the decisions that you're making and things. And it's even in our DNA to want to care about other people and how they view us, because like back in the day, it was about survival. Like it's in our DNA, like back in ancient civilizations, if you weren't accepted by a tribe and protected and all that stuff, you would have been out of here. And so thinking about it now, it's important for like connection and relationships and companionship. Like you don't want to go through life alone. And so, you know, you do that maybe even just for stimulation, like in certain relationships. And so thinking about, you know, whatever the situation is and like why that is so important to you or what you're scared of on the other side of that.
And survival, in that if you're at a job and, you know, you have a boss or teammates who are like, I don't really like, you know, how you did this there, or the work that you're putting out, the ideas, things that you're putting out, then yeah, that's also like for your survival. Like you do need to acknowledge or understand people's opinions of what you're getting paid to do so that you can keep your job, or that so you're putting out the work that your client or your team needs to see or wants to see. So sure, there's also a way that people can give their opinion that is a good or bad way. And maybe, I don't know if that might be a little off if we talk about that too, but you know, you caring about their opinion and saying like, how do I not care? I'm gonna need you to care about the opinion of certain people who signing the checks. I'm gonna need you to care about the opinion of perhaps as us as kids, like who's putting the roof over your head. Like certain things do matter to an extent because you need that for survival. And I think something that Carlie said earlier is what's perhaps important is that there needs to be an assessment of like who you are, where you are in life, who this other person or people are that are giving their opinion, or if they are actually giving it, assess that, and seeing like, okay, how much does this need to matter for me, or how much do I need to take this in, or what do I need to hear from this, and what do I need to let go or put to the side from that.
Yeah, it reminds me of a I don't know, it's like a quote or something I heard back in the day. If they're not feeding you, effing you, or financing you, like, does it matter? Like, should this matter to me? I think a lot of the reasons why we get caught up in other people's opinion is like what it means to us, like what it means about us. Like someone else's negative opinion of ourselves can lead to shame. Like maybe I am not good enough. Maybe I'm not good at my job. Maybe I'm incompetent. Maybe, I'm immoral. And then you give so much weight to their opinion because you have this fear, insecurity about that in yourself. Like a lot of times it's a reflection.
Mm-hmm. And it's so funny when there are opinions like that. And I think we kind of had something in here similar to this. When you have opinions that are like that kind of make you be like, oh man, maybe I'm not doing a good job or whatever. It's so funny to me because I was just talking to somebody the other day about this. It's so funny how somebody could be like, you gonna wear that outfit, or like, I don't know about those shoes, and you're like, oh my gosh, or whatever, and you like take those things to heart, as opposed to if that same person would be like, oh, that's a cool fit you have on, and you might be like, or maybe a better example is just like you getting a compliment or being told something nice about yourself, and sometimes how we'll be like, I don't really know, or you don't really take that fully or accept it, but if they say something negative, then you're like, yeah, like I need to da-da-da, or, you like fully agree. And like, so really a lot of times what you hang on to from other people is, like Carlie is saying now, like a reflection of kind of maybe what you're struggling with believing or what you think to be true. And I think that says a lot too. So that's something that I, every once in a while, like when you're actually in the space of awareness, like you'll think about, like if somebody compliments you, being like let me actually be like, thanks, and take that. Or if they say something negative, stop and like really think like, is that it or not? Or, how do I want to take that? How deeply do I want to pull that in? And moving from there, instead of like feeling like you're just always agreeing with the negative that's coming from other people.
And on the flip side of that is like if somebody compliments, like if you kill a presentation and you did, and someone's like, good job, you like, yeah, you right, thank you. And so really sitting with yourself, this is so much self-awareness, and like sitting with these situations and reflecting on like, what am I believing in this situation? What is it bringing up for me? And that's okay. Like it's okay to have insecurities. It's okay to do that. But like really paying attention to what you hold on to is huge.
Yeah, I do think in general, I feel like most people probably do care what other people think more than what they think. And I think that's seen in like how we move, how we do things, the decisions we make. I don't think that's always bad, but I do kind of feel like that's maybe a way a lot of people are kind of socialized. And I think that we admire people who aren't like that. We're like, dang, like they really do what they want to do, or they just don't seem as affected by other people, which also you never know what's really going on with folks. But yeah, I kind of have a tendency to think like, sure, everybody's like, oh, I love myself and I trust myself and I have my values, blah, blah, blah. And yet we're still kind of affected by like the world around us and what people think in general.
Yeah, and I think it'll probably always be like that. You just can't get too caught up in it. Like, and you have to notice like when it kind of takes it too far. And so here are a couple of signs that like you might be taking it too far. Like you might be caring too much. If you
about what?
About other people's opinions.
Okay.
Or criticisms or like thoughts, like if you're holding their opinions more, higher than your high than your own. So if you change yourself in response to criticism, regardless of what it is and who it comes from. So not just in healthy situations when they're like, man, you need to step it up, but like in other situations too, you're constantly like shifting to whatever people criticize you for.
Another sign that you're caring about other people's opinions too much is if you're letting other people make decisions for you. So, you're kind of defaulting to say like, well, they know better or they know more than me, then so whatever they're saying is what I'm going to do.
Another one is you don't set or maintain boundaries. And that's a huge one. And when she was saying that we respect people who kind of do their own thing, I respect the hell out of somebody who maintains their boundaries. And I always have. And that's because I'm working on being better with that in myself. But if you let people trample all over the things that are important to you and you don't say anything or you don't, set your own like self-respective boundaries, then that's a big sign.
Yeah, that's a huge sign because there's just so many examples of that where like you might be, sitting at home, you just did the most, but then somebody hits you and like, oh, come over, why don't you come over to my house, or let's do this or that, and like you just feel like you have to do things, you have to move because somebody else wants you to move. You like, oh, I don't want them to not like me. Like I think there's a lot of decisions that are made in that kind of way for sure. Another sign that you might care about other people's opinions too much is if you're a perfectionist. So as a perfectionist, you want everybody else to view you as perfect. And so if they have any kind of opinion, again, opinion that's negative, because I feel like we're making that like the default, which it doesn't have to be. But if somebody has something that you perceive to be or is a direct like negative opinion, then you can't take that because I don't have any issues. I'm perfect. So you're either going to be aggressive towards them, probably dislike them, or you're going to like internalize that and use it to be like, oh, woe is me, I'm not perfect, I need to do this, I need to figure that out, and you need to change, like we said, as one of the other signs. It's like, oh, well, let me change because of what they said. So if you're a perfectionist, then you have more of a tendency to care more about what everybody thinks around you because you have to maintain this idea that you are perfect.
Mm-hmm. And another sign that you care too much about what other people think is if you hold your tongue, if your opinion differs from everybody else, like you're scared to stand in your own truth in situations where you might disagree with someone or like feel like you let them down because you're not on the same page. Like anytime you're holding back kind of who you are or your truth, I think it's a huge sign.
Mm-hmm. Another is if you rely on approval from others. So if you don't feel content, you don't feel peace of mind, knowing like if somebody has expressed an issue, or again, it could be as small as like expressing like, well, why don't you do this or whatever, like that kind of like blows you or like really takes over for you. So if you need that approval from everybody, then there's no way you can get that, but B, you're always like looking to make sure you are aligned with other people's opinion.
Another one is you're constantly apologizing, like even if you didn't do anything wrong, I'm trying to think about how that fits in there. If you're caring about other people's opinions, how can over apologize?
Because if I'm like, you were like 10 minutes late getting here, and like, come on, like why you got me waiting here or whatever. And like if you care too much about that opinion, it's like, well, they don't know what you were doing, what you had to do, they don't know what's going on, they don't what kind of day you were having, whatever, but you're allowing, you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. You're taking on, like the fault of things where it's like that's still just like their opinion, or like that's still kind of just their issue in that point. Or even, I don't know, there's a lot of examples. Like if you're always the one apologizing, you're taking the fault and you're the one in the wrong. And so you're not putting forth the front of, well, this is where I'm at, or this is what I'm doing, or, thank you for your patience, but I was doing X, Y, Z. Instead of it just being like, I'm so sorry. Like, I won't mess with you again. Oh my God, I won't let you wait no more.
Like being over responsible.
Yeah. Oh, being over responsible, I think.
Yeah, which is a big thing of people pleasing.
And all of that goes with the perfectionism and what was the other thing up here as well? The boundaries and all of that. Like all of these things kind of roll together in that way.
Mm-hmm. The last one is if you rarely say no. And again, that's a boundaries thing. If you're not saying no, if you're not asserting yourself and what you need and valuing your needs first, that's a really big sign.
Yeah, and another thing to think about also, I said at the beginning, like thinking about whose opinion you care about. I also had a conversation recently about social media, and I think it's very interesting that just these ideas that are formed by masses in general, how they can shape people and how they can shape you and what you think now, or what you, air quote, think is acceptable. Twitter, for example, Twitter is a very small population of people and thoughts, as opposed to like, everybody in this world, right? And so you may be following people or connected with people who maybe we have similar thoughts about, like social justice or things like that. They talk from a space that might seem aware, or, talking about dates and relationships and life and all those things, right? And yet to remember that that's just a small group of people is not reflective of the rest of the world. I think a lot of times we also let those opinions and those conversations shape like now how we might reply to something else, or what we think about particular situations or about people that may be getting talked about that day, or something in the news, or whatever. I think a lot of people probably do let that shape their thoughts or ideas around relationships. So now maybe a girl is afraid to say something because, like, oh, I know they're gonna call me a pick me, or I think what happens is that because we care about people's opinions, even these people we don't know. So this is an example of it being like, oh, you should not care about the opinion of these people, and yet you still have to be kind of responsible with the way you say things and what you say, because that still can have an effect on you, even if you say something that people don't agree with. Or that they have an opinion on, that can affect you because it's all in a public forum. So I say all that to say that there are people I know who, like, they may feel like they need to alter their body or their face. And, all of that comes from the standards that we see in media, including social media. But this isn't like a blame social media thing either, because even from beauty standards in general have always been about what's put in front of us and what we see, whether that's from TV, magazines, whatever. But yes, those opinions affect you and like what you do and how you do things. And, oh, I feel like I need to have a morning routine, and I feel like I need to do this, and I feel like I need to do that, and I feel like I shouldn't be paying for no dates. And, all that stuff comes from other people a lot of times, as opposed to you sitting with yourself to understand, like, what do you care about? What do you think about a lot of these things? And yet, because of survival and, like, you not wanting to get thrown into the Twitter abyss, like, you might not say certain things, even when you believe them. And I know a lot of times people be lying all day, and, like, people in real life, they sit here and talk about how much, they hate men, or they hate this and hate that, or I wouldn't be doing this, girl. And meanwhile, in the back of their life is totally different. So it's like, why, all this stuff you got to take with a grain of salt when it's not people you even know.
So important. And I'm glad you brought that up. Man, that's also how groupthink happens. Mm-hmm. Like, people talk about, man, if that was me back in the day with slavery or Nazi Germany, I wouldn't have did that.
Right.
Well,
you would have been beat the hell up, picking cotton. Like, please.
Y'all would have did all the same things, like, because you have to think for yourself. And I think that's like one of the biggest things is like ways to stop caring less, or ways to soothe your over caring about people's opinions. Which you should care about some, but is to develop your value system and really figure out who you are and what's important to you in that. Like, and once you know yourself, you'll be a lot less easily swayed by other pressures outside.
Mm-hmm. Some other ways to stop caring less. So if you're conscious about who you surround yourself with, and I would take that further to say, if you can really think about the people in your life and determine whose opinion does matter to you, I think that's really important. And then to ask why. Like, does your partner's opinion matter because you don't want them to leave you and blah, 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 or because, like, you guys want to make sure you're aligned and on the same page, and which opinions do matter of that person, because some of their stuff is reflective of their own mess. So whose opinions matter to you and why is something that can kind of help you perhaps, like, shake off certain things, because it's like, that opinion doesn't matter. That's not even on my list.
Man, I've never actually done that, so I'm probably gonna try that this week. Y'all hit us at Carlie's Couch. Let us know, when you're working through this, because I've literally never sat down and thought about that. Like, oh, I wonder if their opinion matters to me.
Yeah, we might not thought about it, but, like, also the way we move and everything that we do is dictated by that. Mm-hmm. So, every time you read any communications from people, reading an email, or again, even like literally like just scrolling social media, like, you're being hit with like opinions, and it's like, what matters or not. There's so many times that, like, I'll be scrolling and, like, I'll want to stop and say something. It's like, nah, never mind. Like, they don't have shit to do with me. And then the ones are the times and people that you do want to respond to or feel like you should respond to. So yeah, that's a big one, I think.
Mm-hmm. Another one, and I got this from therapy, and this is when people have not expressed opinions to you, is to take yourself off the stage. And that means that a lot of times we think that people are paying attention to us, that they care, that they're thinking things or saying things or doing things, when most of the time people are actually inside of their own heads, kind of doing their own shit and living their own life. And so anytime you feel like, oh, they probably doing this and probably doing that, if they actually haven't verbalized anything to you and y'all haven't had a conversation, try to just take yourself off the stage.
Mm-hmm. And that goes with stop trying to mind read, because a lot of times it's us doing what we think they wouldn't like. So, for example, if I was a 15-year-old, if I was still in middle school, high school, and like, oh man, like if thinking like, oh, if I got pregnant, like, oh my gosh, my parents would kill me. They would hate me, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, probably it's like, you sure there might be disappointment or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like, no, those people are actually going to support you. And like, as you grow up older, I think what I've realized is like, you know what, I think I was putting all this like pressures of what I thought they would want or do, as opposed to recognizing that, yes, they still would have saw me as a human being. They still would have saw me as just their daughter, all of those things, right? So it's like you trying to mind read. And it's important to not mind read. And if you are feeling some kind of way about that, and feel like, oh, I need to take myself off the stage, actually, also, you might need to just ask that person, like, what is your thoughts on XYZ? Because also, I think that maybe we take too much responsibility, like, sometimes it is about you, or sometimes somebody may have something that they're thinking, and you're feeling it, and you also just trying to avoid conflict by like having a real conversation. So speaking more, communicating more, I think is a good way to care less. And maybe that's hard because we do care so much. I think for me, I'll shut down because I don't want to like hurt somebody's feelings, or I'm afraid of where the conversation might go. But when you just have that conversation, then you can actually get through those things to where now I'm not mind reading. I know what's going on. You know what's going on, and you can move more clearly from there.
And I think anytime you're vulnerable enough and have those conversations, with the people who you're on that level with, like it opens up better lines of communication and allows them to be a little bit more vulnerable with you, because you're opening up and sharing parts of yourself with them that, that are tough to share. And that's how we start to heal all of those wounds. Any other ways you can think of to stop caring less about what people think?
I think at the center of it all is like knowing yourself, knowing what's important to you, what you care about. But for me, I think that if there's an opinion expressed that I perceive negatively, again, I guess we're just going with that because if there's something being expressed that I perceive negatively, then I kind of have more of a tendency to just think about like why they hit me a little deeper than maybe it needed to or should have. If it's obviously like a malicious thing, then it's like I don't care. If it's somebody expressing an opinion and it's awesome or it's good, it's like, oh great. But if it's something and it's like, why did that kind of affect me? I have a tendency to just think about like, why did that affect me? What do I believe about that? What do I think? And then I have to try to find myself and like recenter, like, what do I think about that? What is my value around that? And then try to like find that anchor.
Yeah. And make sure, you're not projecting your own things or visiting your own insecurities that, were triggered by those things. That's important. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, do that this week. Take some time to think about, the people in your life, people whose opinions matter. Also, I really like that Lexi pointed out that they're not always negative, and that we can be open to that, but we always do default to the negative. And so take some time this week too to notice like maybe why you do that, or ways to be curious and open to good opinions too, as opposed to just bad.
Mm-hmm. And focus on what your opinions are. What are your opinions on the way that you're doing things, what you're doing? Because we can also get in a slump when you find yourself maybe like you're on the sofa or you're in bed and you're like, oh no, I should do this, or like those times when you're like, man, I should go to the gym or whatever. Like I have a lot of those moments where I'm like, I should be doing this right now. I'm like, all right. But it's like in the moments I'm so demotivated and I'm like, all right, I need to do this like tomorrow or whatever. But like you really like kind of just feel bad. So it's just thinking and reflecting on your own opinions of yourself, your own opinions on what you're doing. And just paying attention to like how much more you're focusing on maybe ones that have more of a negative effect on you than a positive effect. And maybe highlighting and spending a little more time in the positive opinions as well. Like actually like bring that in a little bit more. Cause it's okay. Like if somebody expresses an opinion and be like, man, you talk a little too much, or like, say something like that. Right. Like my friends will like roast me all the time about different things. And to a degree I'm like, haha, like, yeah. Cause I know. And then there's sometimes you're like, all right, like, I don't know. It might make you be like, okay, that's something I kind of need to, in the back of my head, like, all right, I need to kind of still work on this, or like I might just not care. But it's okay to like actually hear as well, like hear what somebody is saying when they're expressing an opinion, because there also may be some truths to that, but doing it in a healthy way, and not feeling like you have to drop everything to change something or be something if that's not you. If it's something that you're getting an opinion on that you know you could work on, you want to work on, then great. Like, yeah, that's something I'm still working on, man. Like, and being able to like move forward in that instead of letting that like bring you down. There's just a lot of ways that we can just pay attention to what opinions are being expressed internally and from external sources, and just weighing out, like taking it down one of those little maps of like, does it do this? Yes, no. Like, does this person matter? Or, whatever. Like, are they even successful? No. And then why do I care about what they're talking about? So go through those maps and like really filter things out, filter things a little bit better. I think that's what's important, like how to filter people's opinion.
No, that's probably the most important thing. And also not getting stuck in that shame or the negative things that it does bring up in you, using that energy to love on yourself and to kind of really just sit with stuff and process through it. Like, it's okay if it hurts your feelings, let it hurt your feelings, but don't let it ruin your day. Mm-hmm. Like, kind of keep it moving, take that energy on to something, more positive for yourself instead of internalizing it.
Yeah, there's always, ways to make sure that you're still empowered and that you don't give that power away to other people. So Kayla Monae, we hope that was helpful discussion around, other people's opinions and just thinking about how you navigate like what other people think of you, what you may think they think of you, which is a totally separate thing, and how not to care so much about other people's opinions. Hopefully you'll listen to this, and I'm interested to hear if you might be like, no, guys, you got it all wrong. Like, actually, this is what I'm going through. Or if you have your own kind of a story to kind of add to that, will be an interesting context as well. But to all of our listeners, we hope that this is a good conversation for you to assess whose opinions matter.
Mm-hmm. And ending it with the question of the week. If you could visit any of the original 7 wonders of the world, which one would you pick? And they are the Colossus of Rhodes, the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, Statue of Zeus at Olympia, Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, Mausoleum of Halicarnassus, and the Lighthouse of Alexandria.
And those are the ancient ones too. Mm-hmm. I think there's a few different lists now where they try to switch it up.
Yeah, that's like the first ones. Those are back in the day.
These are the OG ones.
Yep.
So I'm not even familiar with a few of those. But out of the ones that I am familiar with, I probably would actually go with the Hanging Gardens. I don't think that exists anymore though, does it?
No.
Yeah, that would have been cool to see Hanging Gardens. And then I would go with the pyramid after that.
Yeah, I remember when I was little, I was like telling my mom, like, oh yeah, I want to go to the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Mm-hmm. Like, that was like the thing. She was like, yeah, sorry, dog, it's not.
That's a wrap.
Sorry.
A wrap on that. But I used to be obsessed with like ancient Egypt. I had this book about ancient Egypt, and I just love like all that culture and architecture and society in general, like the way they did things. I thought was so cool and interesting. So, and all of this during that time, Greek mythology and all of that as well is like really cool.
All of that. I was a nut for that. So y'all let us know if you could visit any of the original 7 wonders of the world.
Yours is the same one you're saying?
I about to say, yeah. I about to say that's just kept it rolling because it was definitely in that order too. I was like, boop, boop. Yeah. But also because I don't really know the mausoleum at Halicarnassus or Nassus. I don't.
Mm-hmm. That's all Greek stuff. Yeah, the rest of that.
Exactly. Like, I think the Temple of Artemis and stuff, like some of the Greek stuff may be still there, like the ruins of it. Mm-hmm. But I don't think the Lighthouse of Alexandria is still there. But yeah. So, if you have questions or episodes for ideas for episodes, there we go. It's time to go. Let us know, and we'll do an episode on it.
All right. See you guys. Have a great week.